The greenhouse had been sealed for over 20 years, the once gleaming panes dulled by layers of dust and creeping vines that now caressed the glass with a slow, suffocating embrace. It sat on the outskirts of a mostly forgotten estate, hemmed in by an untamed hedge and guarded by a rusted iron gate that whined when the wind touched it just right. Isabelle had inherited the property from a great-aunt she barely remembered, drawn back not by sentimentality but by financial desperation and the prospect of selling the land. The greenhouse had always been off-limits during childhood visits, its entrance chained shut, warnings spoken in clipped tones. Yet now, with key in hand and dusk at her back, Isabelle pushed open the warped door and stepped into the humid twilight of its strange interior. Inside, it felt suspended in time. Rows of thick-leaved plants with roots that had broken free of their pots, tendrils tangling in wild spirals toward the ceiling. The air was thick and damp, saturated with a heady blend of decay and perfume, as though something beneath the soil still pulsed with life. A row of orchids stood impossibly in bloom, their petals waxy and vivid, despite the neglect. Isabelle's footsteps stirred dried leaves and brittle twigs, the sound sharp in the silence. But it was the mirrors, tall, tarnished panels that lined the inner frame of one wall, that made her pause. Glass inside glass, reflecting the tangled wreckage with an unsettling clarity. She approached cautiously, anchoring her gaze to her reflection, and noted that her eyes seemed a little too dark, her smile a little too slow when she moved. That night, Isabelle dreamed of the greenhouse. In her vision, it breathed. The glass pulsed with a faint internal glow, as if lanterns swung gently just out of sight. A woman stood among the plants, her skin mottled like bark, her hair tangled with vine. She whispered something, over and over, in a voice that vibrated more in Isabelle's bones than her ears. When Isabelle awoke, her nails were dirty, packed with soil. Outside her window, the path that led to the greenhouse was clear again. Leaves that once carpeted it now blown aside in a line too straight to be mere wind. She didn't want to go back that morning, but the pull was there. A cold compulsion burrowed in her chest. By noon, she found herself at the threshold again, fingers pressed against the doorframe like a prayer. She began cleaning it during the day, perhaps to soothe the growing unease nesting inside her. With each plant she trimmed, each shattered pot she swept aside, she felt the place growing quieter, watching her with interest rather than menace. But in the mirrors, the reflection refused to match her. A second behind each movement, eyes slightly misaligned, as if the version inside moved not from mimicry but memory. One evening, while polishing the glass, she saw something else entirely, herself turning away to look at something behind her. When she turned in real time, there was nothing. But when she looked back at the mirror, the other Isabelle stood still, smiling gently with lips stitched shut in faint scarring arcs. The glass cracked in a fine, rapid web before she could react, sudden and silent. She tried to sleep that night with the lights on, but the house had a way of darkening no matter how many bulbs she replaced. The dreams were escalating, whispers beneath the floorboards, the sensation of something brushing the edge of her bed. The reflection appeared now in other places. The hallway mirror, the sheen of the kettle, even her own pupils when she caught herself too long in the bathroom mirror. It always seemed confident, patient, waiting. Isabelle dug through her great-aunt's journals in desperation, and found mention of the other, a mirror-born twin born from neglected grief and loneliness, kept quiet only by the rituals of tending. The greenhouse, more than just glass and plants, had been a cage. But the chains rust, and cages forget. Days passed. Isabelle stopped answering calls, left the mailbox stuffed and overflowing. On the seventh night, neighbors reported humming, low and constant, a dirge-like sound that carried on until morning. When they knocked on her door, it opened a crack on its own, and through the dirty glass of the side shed, they could see movement in the greenhouse. Silhouettes. Two women, one slightly behind the other. But only one moved like she was real. The second followed with a delay, smiling too much, blinking too little. And when the reflection turned and looked directly at them, its lips parted, whispering, though the sound came from behind them.